everyone. I'm sitting down here today with Sasha Wendin. Sasha, can you tell my audience a little bit about yourself, like where you work and your job title?
Yes. Hey, everyone. I am Sasha. I am a growth consultant at Shopify, working with existing Shopify brands, helping them grow the business.
Cool. And for those of who maybe have never heard of Shopify, not familiar with e-commerce, what is Shopify?
So Shopify is an e-commerce platform that effectively helps entrepreneurs launch their business. That's really how it started out, but it's really for anyone now that is looking, to grow their business and utilize a platform that helps them streamline a lot of business operations and takes away a lot of the kind of manual coding work on the back end.
Yeah, great. And Shopify is one of the biggest platforms out there for hosting websites. So I'm so excited to be sitting down with you here today. Sasha and I actually have a really cool way that we met each other. We're in New York City today, and we met the other day actually at a e-commerce women's meetup. It was sponsored by Bridge and Yotpo and SearchSpring. These are all e-commerce tech platforms. And the meetup was at Bandit, right? Yeah. It was a store. Was it in Soho? I think we started there.
I've actually been meaning to go there for ages.
Yeah.
I'm a runner and everyone raves about it. So it was a cool opportunity to meet a lot of people and also get to check out the store.
Yeah. And so I'm training for a half marathon, and I was just so excited when I came across in my LinkedIn feed like this meetup, and I was like, okay, great. I can like meet people here. This counts as work. But I also get to run in my training. But yeah, where did we run? We ran by the Statue of Liberty, I remember.
Yeah, we went down the West Side Highway, starting kind of a little further up West Village, Soho area, and then down to Brookfield Place, for anyone that's familiar, and then kind of back on the West Side Highway. I mean, it was a little 5K. We kind of led the pack, which I loved.
Yes.
We really started our Friday as we meant to go on. It was so fun.
Yeah, and I was so impressed because you had some good speed. I couldn't believe it. On her watch, you were wearing an Apple Watch, and I guess we did like a 6-minute mile at one point, which is crazy because I'm very much someone who like lives in the 10 to 11-minute mile zone.
We were seriously just hustling. I'm like, the West Side Highway puts you in a different league, I guess.
Yeah, but it was so cool. We met, in our conversation, we were chatting about our lives, and she works at Shopify. I work at an agency that does web development and digital marketing, and we're actually a Shopify Plus partner. And it was just really cool to kind of hear about how you started working at Shopify, kind of the career path you've had at different e-commerce tech platforms. And I feel like, thank you so much for being open to being on this podcast. We haven't known each other that long, but it was so fun to meet. And I feel like your story would be so valuable to share with people. So maybe you want to start telling us like where you're from?
Yes, I, as you can probably tell, not from New York, grew up in the UK, just outside of London. My dad is from New York, lucky enough to have passports in both the UK and the US. So I moved to New York about 2 years ago to start working actually at a firm who does buy now, pay later, and recently transitioned to Shopify. But I actually started my life in data analytics. It's been kind of a cool transition for me where I graduated right at the start of COVID, March of 2020. Just saw how
what
valuable.
A wild time.
Crazy time.
Looking for your first job.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, back then, just even reflecting, like, that being the start of my career, I feel like it was really difficult, but it also really helped me understand where my interests lay, because you did have to really, like, look for something more specific because there was less available, right? But I found this cool job in data analytics, and it really helped me understand the value of data in a time where it was becoming so important.
Yeah. And were you in London when you got your first data analytics job?
Yes.
Okay.
I was in London for the first 2 years. So I worked there for just under 2 years before I moved to New York.
And did you go to school in London?
I went to school, not in London. I went to the University of Exeter, which is down the southwest coast of the UK. But in the UK I went to school.
Okay. And so what was that first company that you got a job at?
Yeah. So it was called Sweet Analytic, and it's effectively data analytics agency, which supports a lot of brands, a lot of like smaller brands, understand their data, particularly online consumer data. And then my role there was to really like digest that data, understand where the opportunities lay, and then really be able to deliver to them like, okay, what does the next step look like in terms of business growth? And then also, you know, where could we be doing better? For me, it was really cool to be able to kind of tell that story with their data. But I also felt like I spent way too much time like behind Excel, which is really why I made that pivot into sales.
Yeah. And you're such a people person.
Right.
So
I was like, I shouldn't be spending all this time on Excel. I should be like in front of people and having conversations on a day-to-day basis, versus at that role, I was only having conversations on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah. But also incredibly helpful experience for you to have. You know,
100%.
Data is omnipresent in what we do in e-commerce. It informs everything we do. It's all metric based. And
exactly.
The beauty of like things, digital marketing, e-commerce, is that you're able to, through Google Analytics or whatever BI business intelligence tools that you're using, see the composition of like your audience, where those sales are coming from oftentimes. Like attribution can be difficult, but it's a lot better than perhaps the sales that happen at a brick and mortar where it's like so difficult to know where that customer came from.
Totally.
But yeah, actually when on our run, it was really cool to hear that athletics are a big part of your life. And I want to, before I move into your first jobs in e-commerce, I want to dig into your life as an athlete. Yeah. Can you tell us about that?
I love that. Yes, 100%. It's always been a big part of my life. I feel lucky enough that I came from a family that just loves to be active. So that definitely helped growing up. I just have always loved to run. It's been such a great outlet for me. I would competitively run when I was younger. That was kind of my thing. One school, they were so competitive, they would actually enter me into the boys' races just to like be able to.
That is such a flex. I love that.
It was, I loved it and I hated it because I was like, this is kind of cool, but also
you
like
stand out.
You're going through that like transitional phase. You're like, I don't want to be associated as like a boy when I'm trying to be a girl. Yeah, it was definitely fun. I really enjoyed it. I then kind of took a little break. I feel like it was my whole kind of competitive realm of running burnt me out a little bit. So then really got into tennis. That's kind of been a big part of my life as well. And then really like when I started working again, got into running and have since run the London and New York Marathon.
Amazing.
Which has been
And how old
incredible.
are you?
I'm 26.
Which is crazy. Like I'm training for my first half marathon. I'm 31. Like, so it's so cool that you've done multiple.
It's like, I feel like it's one of those things for me, and it's anyone really that is like training for anything half full, it's such an accomplishment regardless. And I'd recommend to anyone just like trying it, because it doesn't matter how quickly you do it. It's just like the sense of like accomplishment. But for me, I'm such a goal orientated person. It's probably why I enjoy being in sales, that I always feel like I need something on the horizon that I'm working towards.
A goalpost that you're aiming towards.
Totally. Yeah. And I can reflect on the year and say, you know, I did some great things in terms of my professional and my personal life, but like what's something that maybe really stood out that I can differentiate this year from the year before, or what can I do next year that's going to differentiate that? So that's really the way that my mindset works, and probably why I've ended up doing 2 marathons, because it's such kind of an obvious thing to do, to feel like you've accomplished something.
Yeah. And that's how I'm approaching it, is just being able to just run the whole time and complete it. But so cool. How do you think athletics, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, you're goal oriented. Do you think that it has touched your career path in other ways?
Definitely, yeah. As I mentioned at the beginning, starting off my life in data analytics, like it was really interesting and it definitely challenged me in a lot of ways, but I didn't have that sense of kind of having a goal, right? Like at the end of the week or the end of the quarter. And maybe that's kind of psychotic of me, because people in sales are like, that's the worst thing about sales is having a quota. But I also think for me, it keeps me accountable. And I think if you are someone that enjoys having goals set for yourself and being able to hit those, surpass those, feel like you constantly have something that you're working towards and that kind of allows you to measure your success within that role, that for me is where I've really been able to like align my kind of competitive mindset from like an athletic perspective into my professional world.
And I think you're a great conversationalist and a great listener too. I feel like we did that 3.2 mile run together and we learned so much about each other. And I thought that was so fun and cool. So when you took the job from a firm, so that was the job that you took after the data analytics company.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And was that the job that took you to the US?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And it brought you to New York?
Brought me to New York.
Okay.
I was very much looking for an opportunity in New York. So for me, it was more about, okay, I know that I'm ready to leave this data analytics role. Where can I kind of apply that's going to give me that opportunity to be in New York? Because I just knew it's somewhere that I needed to be and experience. And I figure it's such a unique kind of time in your life to be in New York. And it's something that I didn't want it to like get away from me, right? And suddenly realize, you know, I'm like getting a bit older and I feel like I've missed kind of maybe a prime opportunity to be here. So it was definitely an intentional decision to find a job that aligned with being here.
Cool. And so was that your first, when your job at a firm, was it a sales role?
Yes.
Okay.
So my job at a firm, it was a sales role. It was net new sales role.
Okay.
So I actually started there as an SDR. And anyone that doesn't know, that's a sales development representative.
And that's typically like it's like your first position, the first rung of the ladder, I guess, in sales.
100%. Yeah, it's kind of bottom of the barrel. So from that perspective, I was definitely starting afresh in terms of that type of role, which I was totally fine with. You know, I knew that sales was something that I was interested in pursuing. From my perspective, I just really used my interest in data to my advantage to be able to deliver value to the merchants that I was reaching out to. So I feel like that made me really successful early on in that position. I think a lot of people can get caught up in just like sending outreach and just like hoping, you know,
like copy paste like messages templated and send it en masse to people. That's not the way to do it. No,
exactly. And I'm like, you know, you could throw shit at a wall and hope it sticks, but at the end of the day, like people receive so many emails and like so much information these days that you taking that extra time to really understand like what they're looking for and what might be meaningful to them is going to take you that much further. So, you know, that's really the best insight I have from like that role. And that's what really launched me into the more like account executive position, where I would be closing, I would be having, you know, those actual conversations with merchants, uncovering their pain points and understanding how we could deliver value to help meet their needs. But it was slightly different for sure because it was net new business versus now at Shopify, I'm working on existing business.
And just to take a step back so people understand, like, so sales development representative, SDR, that would be like your first step in sales, getting in the door.
Yeah.
Great, because you end up learning a lot. You learn how to use the different platforms. I don't know what a firm was using for like their CRM.
Yeah, so we were using Salesforce.
Okay, yeah.
And then we were originally using Outreach, and then we moved to SalesLoft in terms of like an outreach tool.
Yeah, so if you want to get a sales job, be a salesperson, especially in tech, you do have to show experience or at least competency with those platforms, because especially if you're stepping into the next step from SDR would be account executive.
Right.
The expectation is that you know how to use these tools already,
yes.
like day one at the job.
100%. And I do think that there's a lot of value that comes from being in that initial position.
Yeah.
Because it's like you are really learning how to build up like that initial touch point with that merchant before you're getting on the call with them. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, you know, they just get on that account executive call and they just like start just like kind of word vomiting
Or they have
sales
like a
and
script,
product.
they have like canned
Right.
things. You can't
And there's
do
just
that,
no
yeah.
discovery and there's no understanding of what that merchant is looking for. I think for me, as much as it maybe felt like a little bit of a step back going into that position from my data analytics position, it really helped me actually become more successful today than I probably would have been if I'd gone straight into an AE role.
Yeah. And I think it also, you learn so much because when you're a sales development representative, SDR, your job is to, like you said, create that first touch point with the merchant. So that involves what we call cold outreach. You have to find people that are in your ideal customer profile. There's like, you have a target profile, target type of person, maybe role, maybe type of company. And then your job as the SDR is to reach out to the relevant team members at the company to get them interested in having a further conversation with your team. And that further conversation, so that there's like a handoff that happens from the SDR to the account executive.
Yeah.
And then the account executive is the one that will have that more in-depth discovery conversation that leads to a contract that's signed, or basically they close the deal is what we would call
exactly.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
So what was the pathway from Affirm to Shopify?
So it was interesting, actually. I had a good colleague that I worked with at Affirm, a good friend who was a colleague from Affirm, and he had actually moved to Shopify. And we'd kind of kept in touch because we had a very similar kind of trajectory at Affirm. We'd both started as SDRs. We'd been on the same team, and then he had been there about a year before me. And so he, as I was joining, had kind of moved up to that AE position. He had always been super successful, and also kind of, as I was previously mentioning, like had been more intentional about like the way he approached his messaging and outreach and things like that. So when he moved to Shopify, it was kind of interesting to me. And I think particularly like within the tech space, there is so much more mobility from like a job perspective. Whereas like you look at the finance industry, and I just don't think people are as open to like, oh, you moved jobs every 2 years, you know, whereas tech, I think it's really interesting. That's much more common.
Especially in sales. Like
Especially
I think
in sales.
that's kind of the trajectory. You should actually be moving companies as an account executive, because oftentimes that's when you're negotiating your salary. Like significantly.
Totally.
And that's the jump is when that happens.
I agree entirely.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy as well. Like when you get very used to selling a product, it becomes like quite stagnant. And you could kind of just do it with your eyes closed. And to me, as a very goal-oriented person, I felt once I'd done around 2 years at Affirm, I was kind of itching for the next thing. And I was really looking to understand what is a company that's interesting to me. I think my biggest advice in sales is never go to a company or sell a product that you don't fundamentally believe in.
Yes.
Because
100%. Because you won't be convincing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no passion behind what you're
selling. And people
selling.
can feel that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I think sales is so personable.
It is.
If you want to get other people excited about what you're selling them, you have to fundamentally be excited about it.
And believe in it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so Shopify really was that company that felt like the natural next step to me. I think it's a great brand. I think it's a really, really cool story. And it's just it's a bigger company. It's got a wider product base, more diverse, which for me, looking for that next challenge was kind of what I wanted to be able to do. And just randomly got approached by a recruiter March of this year. And it truly felt like a manifestation. Like I know that sounds so crazy, but I'm like, I'd been having these conversations with this previous colleague at the end of last year, and there just like hadn't been the job opportunities arise yet within like the website where they're doing the postings. And so when I got approached by this recruiter, I was like, this just feels like I had put my energy into like knowing that Shopify is where I wanted to be next. And now it's kind of come to fruition. So it was a really, really cool like segue from Affirm to Shopify personally, where I felt like I'd already really known that it was the right next step, but I was almost like given the opportunity to go with it rather than like really having to like fight for it, if that makes sense.
Well, that's amazing. And I also think it's like your motivation and preparation meeting the moment. Like, it can't all be luck. You are already ready to have those conversations. Affirm is a company that also works with a ton of Shopify merchants. So you had that awareness and like
Totally.
understanding of Shopify going in. So what was that experience? You were approached by a recruiter. What was your interview process?
So my interview process was definitely more unique, I would say, based on the fact that the recruiter approached me as we were going to the Shop Talk conference in
And Shop Talk is
Vegas.
like one of the biggest. It's probably it's like our Super Bowl for e-commerce,
Yes,
right? Like
exactly.
and they're actually doing their first Chicago
I
Shop
didn't
Talk.
know
Yeah,
that.
this
That's
year.
cool.
So
I take Chicago
live in
over
Chicago.
Vegas every day.
Vegas is crazy.
Yeah, Vegas is definitely
I hope
crazy.
you come. Then you can. I live in Chicago, and then.
Yeah, 100%. That would be so much fun.
But yeah, so your interview process kind of unique.
So unique because of the fact that this recruiter reached out to me, understanding the fact that I was going to Shop Talk because they get a list of people, right, that are going. And it was like the classic recruiter reach out, oh, we think you'd be a really great fit, love to have a conversation. Would you be open to grabbing coffee, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm such a people person, as you probably can tell, that I not only had obviously already had Shopify on my radar, but I was so excited about the fact that this was going to be like an in-person meet, right? Mm-hmm. I think that it's really beneficial these days that we can do everything remotely, but I think we are losing that element of like real like human connection. Mm-hmm. And I think when you're making that decision on like where you're taking your career as a next step, it's really important to like spend time with the people at that company, not just one of them, but really understanding the types of people that they hire and like really the environment that it's fostering. So to me, it was really cool that I had kind of the beginning of my interviews at the Shop Talk conference, and I was able to have so many kind of candid conversations during those 3 days that I was there.
Because a ton of Shop Talk team members, Shopify, lots of shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They had a ton of people there. They had kind of a huge booth. So I had the opportunity to meet some of the leadership team, as well as the recruiter that have reached out, as well as a sales manager. And we did just kind of a lot of like walking and talking. It just felt really natural, and everyone that I came across was so normal and nice. It was just such a green flag to me, just feeling so relaxed and kind of easygoing with these people, right? I think it can be quite intimidating when you're trying to sell yourself, right, to a new company. But they never really made me feel like I was under that much pressure, which was really nice. Basically, after that conference, I was kind of accelerated through to like the more final stages of what the interview process looks like, which is when you have to do like a mock pitch, which is a classic sales thing, and then kind of having that final conversation and offer.
Great. And I know quite a few folks, like personal friends of mine that work at Shopify. Shopify is a partner of ours and can confirm cool people, great place to work. What they tell me about Shopify.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I've been there since June and I've not met one person I don't like. Like, it's seriously such a great reflection on the company and the types of people that they hire. And I was lucky enough, week 2, they had the 20-year summit, which is effectively celebrating 20 years of the company existing. And so I was really thrown into the deep end, kind of hands and feet tied. It was awesome. I went to Toronto, I met a ton of people on my team and wider, and it really enabled me to get a vibe of the company and the people I'm working with so early on, which really like helped launch me into a good place, feeling comfortable to kind of know how to build relationships within the company, because every company is so different.
So can you walk us through what your day-to-day looks like in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that within sales, like, you are in control so much of how you want your day to look like. We've established I'm a goal-oriented person, so I love a to-do list. I feel like that's kind of always the way that I start my day is, what's my agenda? What do I want to achieve today? What are my priorities? Depending on how many meetings I have, because that really fluctuates day by day, I'm obviously prioritizing preparing for those merchant calls if I have them. What that looks like is going into their back-end dashboards, understanding their analytics over maybe the past 90 or 90 days or even the past year. Maybe sales are down, conversions down, maybe where the opportunities lie, how I want to build a story for that conversation and enable them to understand where the optimization opportunities are, right? So that to me is like a more exciting day, I would say, is when I am preparing for those conversations. And again, being able to look at the data and really understand the brand and what their values are and what their goals are. But then there are other days that, you know, I won't have as many or any merchant meetings. And those days I'm prospecting and I'm looking through my book. I'm understanding where the opportunities lie. I think the really cool thing about Shopify is that there are so many different products to offer, right? You know,
There's like a point of sale. Yeah.
Exactly. You have point of sale, you have Shopify Capital, which is funding for businesses. You have managed markets, which used to be called Markets Pro, which is an international selling tool. We have B2B, we have Shopify Plus. We have this whole product suite available as a sales rep. You're really having to understand the business and where, you know,
and match them up to those products that would best serve them.
Right.
Yeah.
So the time that I do have on those days that I don't have as many meetings, that's really when I'm identifying those opportunities and trying to understand where we can drive value for those brands. And I think what's really cool, you know, moving from the net new business sales role to an existing business sales role is they're already bought into Shopify. A lot of the time, they really understand the value and they've had a really great experience on the platform. And so with that, you have credibility in your outreach. It's really about like building that connection and that rapport with that merchant and making them feel as though you're really there to help them rather than to like sell to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so how many, day one at the job, were you given like a portfolio of brands that were under your management? Because your job, like your role, you're working with existing Shopify merchants and you are working with them on upgrades if that serves their business or maybe adding new products. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, when I started, there was a lot of onboarding, naturally, a lot to learn, a lot of different products. But then, to your point, I was given a book of business. It's about 300 accounts that are all already on Shopify. It can be anywhere from Korean skincare to bikinis to selling gardening equipment. There isn't really an industry specific that we're like siloed into, which is kind of cool because you have a lot of different conversations. I think the nice thing about the way that our book managed is you don't have so many accounts that you don't really have the time to really invest in those businesses that you do have in your book. I think based on the amount that I have, there's going to be some that have fewer opportunities available to them in terms of like product upgrades. There are going to be others who I've literally sold every single product to them. And that's just because they're a great fit for all of them. So I think, you know, it's really about prioritizing where the opportunities lie in your book and having them as existing clients. You have a very clear point of contact, which is awesome because that's something I found frustrating at my old sales role was with net new business. It's like, am I going to be reaching out to the CFO, the CMO? Like, is there a head of e-commerce? Is there an operational person who manages these initiatives?
And sometimes it's like multiple people that you have to get to the table.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, it's a lot of energy spent reaching out to those people and not knowing if even like that's something that they handle in terms of like a business decision. So I will say as much as 300 accounts sounds like a lot, when you do have that direct point of contact, that just by reaching out to that one or those two people on the same email is the right person, it makes it a lot quicker to like navigate that account.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about New York. There's a lot of intentionality around your move to New York. And for you, you were moving countries. So I feel like it's so brave of you to come. And I think a lot of people have romantic notion of New York. I mean, there's a lot of hustle here, but it's also incredibly expensive, like rent. And for some people that go is like, can be draining. But for you, it has not been draining. It's been very exciting. And I think probably an accelerator for your career for sure. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. As I said at the beginning, like New York was always a city on my radar that I just knew I had to move here and experience. I kind of figured if I hate it, I can always just move home and everyone's still going to be there. I'm so grateful that I did. I genuinely don't think New York is for everyone. I think that New York is an awesome place to meet really cool people and to experience really cool things. But you definitely have to be the kind of person that wants to lean into that mindset. Mm-hmm. I definitely would say, if you ask my friends what one of my best qualities is, it's that I just am a yes person.
Yeah, totally.
I just love to take control of the moment and just do whatever kind of comes, across.
And you never know what opportunities present themselves and take advantage.
100%.
Yeah.
And so for me, being that kind of spur of the moment person, New York has just aligned so perfectly with that, because even just the way that we met, right?
Yeah.
It was one of our partners, Yotpo, invited me to this 5K event, and being the way that I am, of course I'm going to do that. That sounds so fun. What a great opportunity to meet people. For me, I'd always seen New York as an amazing place to network, both professionally and personally. I think London can be a little bit siloed in that way. When just looking at the US, there are so many big cities that people move to. Within the UK, everyone really funnels into London. So it was quite difficult to really branch out and meet people that didn't have any kind of association to people you already knew.
Interesting.
Which I found really valuable in New York. I really can meet people and they have no idea where I went to school. They really have no idea about me apart from maybe where I work. And I think that's really cool, because I think that really gives you the opportunity to be your own person and not have these kind of prejudiced assumptions that potentially can come from maybe just being in your hometown. As I said, that can be really intimidating. When I first moved here, candidly, I hated it. I would say for the first 4-5 months.
I hear this a lot from people who move to New York, though.
Oh, yeah.
That there's a phase in which you're this was a huge mistake.
This was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I remember I moved September of 2022. I went home for Christmas back to London and I cried to my mum.
Aww.
And I was like, this is a terrible mistake. And she said, you've got to give it 6 months. You just have to push through. And the thing about me is I don't need 50 friends. I want 10 close friends, and I want those people to be my ride or die. I know that I can rely on them. I know that they have my back. And it's way more difficult to find those kind of people in a place like New York, just because everyone can be here for so many different agendas that people can be a little self-serving at times.
And people are also just really busy. Just the
100%.
logistics of meeting up for dinner.
Exactly. And things are just constantly go, 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 that I feel at that point as well, it's very difficult to take a moment to breathe and maybe reflect on, okay, how did I feel that was hanging out with that person versus that person? And it was just very intimidating moving here and just not having that foundational friendship group that I felt I'd had in London and I could rely on if I was just tired and just wanted to hang out and not using a lot of energy, right, to socialize. Mm-hmm. You want those friends that are just super easy to hang out with.
Where you can just do nothing.
Exactly.
Be on your phones next to each other.
Not even speaking, just in each other's company.
Yeah.
So that was a big challenge for me at the beginning, just navigating that and being able to find those people. But I think reflecting on that now, the most valuable thing I learned is that it really only takes you meeting 1 or 2 people to then actually build that group.
Yeah.
Because what I found is that you meet those 1 or 2 people that you connect with, and actually the people that they are friends with are also those people that you connect with, because you truly are an average of I think they say the 8 people that you hang out with the most is what you're an average of. Mm-hmm. So it's those that you associate yourself with.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Right, is kind of how you mold yourself to be in a social situation. And for me, I just think that meeting those 1 or 2 people after that Christmas period when I came back and was I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm really going to embrace this and make sure that I'm taking every opportunity I can to meet people. It just went from 0 to 100 of me feeling not great about it to suddenly thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I nearly stepped away from this and would have never have met these people and wouldn't have been in this situation.
You powered through it.
I powered through. A
That's so
life
good.
lesson to
Yeah.
anyone. Like, it's peaks and troughs, and like you
totally.
gotta appreciate the good, because when it gets bad, you just want to like motivate yourself to be back in the good. I think that it was a really great lesson just in terms of like being self-assured and just knowing my own values and kind of sticking out to meet those right people that have now really created my experience here in New York.
And how did you find those first couple friends, close friends?
So randomly, I'm kind of like a Chicago-based connection. I spend my summers on Lake Michigan, and a good friend of mine from there had actually gone to college with this girl. They were in the same sorority together, and so she had connected us just because we were both living in New York, and
Oh, great.
figured, you guys should be friends. And it was funny because she was the first person that I met after coming back from Christmas. And I was just like, I'm going to stop pretending like I love this city, and I'm going to go for brunch with this girl. And I'm just going to be like, you know what? I found it really hard, and like I haven't really found my people, and just being very
Vulnerable
authentic.
and authentic, yeah.
Because I think at the beginning it was just like I was trying to convince everyone I was loving it and that it was such a fun place. And I was like, why am I doing that?
Because you're trying to like convince yourself, maybe.
Right,
I don't
exactly.
know. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want people to think I'm this like Debbie Downer, right? And they're like hanging out with me and they're like, oh, this isn't like bringing the right energy. And so it was funny how me bringing that conversation to her resonated so much with her, where she, funnily enough, hadn't really loved the people that she was at college with. And so when she moved to New York, she kind of made her New York friends versus just like staying with her college friends. So we really bonded over that and about how New York is difficult to navigate from that perspective, and meeting people that you really connect with. Really from there, like she was so kind and introduced me to so many people that she was friends with in the city, and a lot of them have become good friends of mine. And it's become like such a kind of domino effect where I've met one of the friends of that friendship group, and then one of the girls in that friendship group then had a friend that was like completely separate in another friendship group, and then like I've become really good friends with her. And I think it's such a cool thing about New York is that people have come from so many different places and connected through so many different avenues of life that you don't have this typical perception of like what a friendship group looks like. Like it is so much more diverse from my experience.
And I think it also, to your credit, like you saying yes, because I think a lot of people maybe, oh, I don't know this person. It feels like almost like a blind date. Like you're
Totally.
like a person that you're friends with, you don't know her, but like maybe you should meet with her. But you take the
Exactly.
chance, you say yes. And I think like a lot of people also talk about how hard it is to make friends in adulthood, like once you leave college. And it's like, it is all about saying yes to things. And like, you're not always going to vibe with someone that you hang
Right.
out with, but like, you don't know until you go to these hangout sessions and you like give people a chance, go put yourself out there, take yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's how you build your community, slowly but surely.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, I think why it's so valuable to experience something like this, to move to a new city and really not know anyone. Because I think at school, college, like it's so much easier to be connected with people in groups through sport or through sororities or just like through dorms, right? It's like you're kind of placed in an environment where it's very easy to just be with people and meet people, whereas being in New York, it's definitely not. Like you really have to like go out and make the effort to do that, and as you said, like be a yes person and find the energy even when like maybe you're feeling exhausted, just to like think, well, you never know, this person could be my next best friend. And I think that I hadn't really had that experience before or needed to, with growing up in London and having so many people around me. It's taught me so much about myself, and I truly think that the friends that I've made here are so much more meaningful to me because I feel like it was such a selective process where they weren't just put in front of me and I could just like be like, oh great, we're dorming together, or like we play sports together, so like let's be friends.
It's very intentional.
Very intentional.
Because also you have to invest in those friendships. It's like you
Right.
make the friend, but you also have to make the time for that person, check in, make sure that making time for them, hanging out with them.
100%.
Yeah.
And as we've said, like things are busy here, you know, life is hectic in New York and people have jobs and other things going on in their lives, and you don't have the luxury of just being able to kind of hang out in the middle of the day like maybe we all did in college. And so it's one of those things that your time is not only more valuable to yourself, but it's also about who you choose to spend your time with in those kind of pockets that you have available. It's definitely a really cool thing to kind of experience and now reflect on. So I'm really grateful for it.
So just a slight pivot. I want to hear about your views on, I guess, women climbing the career ladder as a woman. You're a little bit younger than me, 26, but I feel like we're in the same spaces in this industry. I just want to understand like what your experience has been, what your perspective is on being a woman in your role, navigating e-com.
Yeah. No, I think to me, it's been a really cool experience. I think that we can all speak to how much more of an impact women have been able to kind of have now. I just think it's so inspiring to be around people that are really seizing those opportunities and really being able to hear their stories and allowing them to inspire your own story. I've had the pleasure of working at a firm and also at Shopify with a lot of female leaders. I think transparently, it can be something that can go really well or really badly. I think women are more emotionally kind of fueled typically. And so sometimes having a female leader can not be as easy as potentially having a male leader just because of that emotional friction. So I think it's been, interesting navigating that. But I've found it really exciting having such interesting kind of motivated women that I've been able to work with to kind of help me understand like the person that I want to become in a professional realm. Most recently, the manager that I was assigned at Shopify is just like one of my most favorite people that I've come across in like the professional realm.
You can give her a shout out.
Which, Sam Sousa, love you. She's awesome. She was everything that I didn't have in a manager at my old company. And it really helped me understand what is valuable to me in my career and having someone really support like what you're looking to achieve. She's so accountable for what she wants to do and how she wants to help people that she works with, not just on her direct team, but as in the wider org. And I think that's a really cool thing about women. I think that like they are just a little more like conscientious of supporting people. And that really is something that I have felt has really benefited me in like the earlier days in my career, right? Where I'm like really still trying to navigate maybe like, what do I want to do? Where do I want my career to take me? Particularly in an industry where it's not as classic as maybe like a finance industry, right? Where it's like, okay.
It's like relatively newer. E-com is newer.
100%. It's newer and there's so many changes forever happening. And with technology advancing as quickly as it is, we are having to adapt to that so quickly. So being around people and women who like are so receptive to that and allow you to feel excited about that versus like intimidated by that has been a really, really cool experience.
Cool. And would you say has mentorship played a role in your career as well?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I had a mentor actually at a firm previously, Yvonne, who I really looked up to. She is just
what's her name? Shout out to her too.
Yvonne Herrera. She's awesome. She's still at a firm. She is just like an absolute boss. I don't know how she does it. She has a whole family and kids and probably wears
It's so important
too
to
many
see
hats.
that too.
100%.
People with families. Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
And it was cool because she lived in Rye. And so, I would see her in the office a bunch, which was really fun to have that personal interaction. But she would wear just a ton of hats. She did so many things within the org, but she always, found the time to sit down and have those meaningful conversations and really, help me understand what I could be doing better. As a goal-oriented person, I'm always looking for feedback and how to be better and do a better job, what my role is at that company. And she was really, really impactful in that period of my life. And I'll always be kind of appreciative of her and her time for that.
What was the process of how, this is for people who want to know how to get a mentor, how would you approach that?
I think truly it's a combination of being intentional about the conversations that you have and being candid with people that you meet in an environment where you maybe foresee them being a mentor to you and not being afraid to ask for that advice. I think that as humans, we love to be complimented, and it is such a compliment, right, to be someone's mentor. And I also think it's about putting yourself in those opportunities, right? And in those environments where you have the opportunity to meet those people. I still think the most valuable way of like building a real human connection is being in person. And I think as much as you can be inspired by someone on LinkedIn or remotely, and like if that's your only opportunity to do that, like obviously lean into that. But I also think that opportunity to meet people in person and to really like connect with them and be more candid in your kind of perception on what you want for yourself and the kind of advice that you're seeking is really like having that in-person connection and being able to leverage that. My advice is just always be super transparent, really identify those opportunities and those people if they inspire you, if you feel like they're someone that would be able to give you good advice, and just ask the question. You know, what's the worst they can say? I'm so sorry, I don't have the time.
That's fine.
And it's like, okay, well, kind of no harm, no foul.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? Like, you're not leaving the situation any
You're giving
worse
them a
off.
compliment. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think like the in-person connection is really important. Like for me personally, I think my career really escalated quite a bit when I started going to events like Shop Talk, going to these trade shows, especially during the pandemic. Everyone went online, tons of Zoom meetings, and I'd had relationships with people, with partners for years, but it wasn't until like I met them in person at these events, started to learn a little bit about their personal lives, share a little bit about myself. That's when things got really, it just naturally, like the partnerships on a professional level became more fruitful because people want to work with people that they like, they know, they trust. So yeah, definitely can co-sign that piece of advice. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes to this. You're a yes person.
Exactly.
Is there anything that you want to maybe share with our listeners about what's next for you, or even piece of advice? I want to give you a little platform too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, thank you for having me. This has been an incredible opportunity. And as we've discussed, embracing those opportunities to meet people, if we hadn't both shown up for that run on Friday morning, you know, neither of us would be here right now.
Right.
So, you know, I would say my advice is lean into those opportunities. You know, don't be afraid of feeling uncomfortable. The best thing that I've ever done in life and the best kind of lesson I've taught myself is more uncomfortable the situation, typically like the more powerful the outcome.
Yeah,
right?
The growth is happening.
Exactly.
Like when your muscle is sore, like after a workout, it's because it's like, you know,
exactly
repairing itself and becoming stronger. Like
100%.
Yeah.
And so really lean into those opportunities, feel excited about those opportunities and what they might bring. I want to finish with like the best piece of advice I was ever given is that easy decisions lead to a hard life and hard decisions lead to an easy life.
Ooh,
So,
I like that.
Yeah, make those hard decisions and I hope that it leads you to that easy life.
That's great advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
This
for
has been so
listening,
much
everyone.
fun.
Have a great day.